it.
Yeah.
I need to walk you through this at some point. It's amazing.
It's pretty good. Okay.
It's really good. It's expensive, but yeah, maybe we get a few more pro members, we can buy a subscription or
Like
something.
like when you say expensive, how expensive are we talking about here?
I don't remember. It's a couple $100 a year, I think.
Yeah,
So it's
cuz
not super expensive. And I'm not asking you to pay for that.
no,
Like
no, no, it's
if
more a matter
Bookworm
of
could pay for it, I would love to like give it to you.
it's more a
Because
matter of like I want it, but
yeah, I
it's just
figured you would.
like it's like right now, is that the wise thing for us to do?
Probably not, but
It's probably not. Okay, so this can go away. Mike, I feel like I have Windows on top of Windows on top of Windows.
I'm
Okay.
not the only one.
Oh my
Good.
gosh, like I'm going crazy. Oh, if we want to do the pro show, I could talk about floors too, right? I
I
mean,
mean,
I'm almost
whatever you want to do.
I'm almost a floor pro, realizing that I don't ever want to do floors again. So there you go.
Yeah, I mean, whatever you want to do.
Nope, I don't want to do that.
No? Okay.
All right.
Let's count down and then you can well, the second one, the Discord link, that's the beginning of our journey together
Okay.
today.
All right. So I'm
Just so
gonna
you're aware.
I'm gonna ask you, or I'm gonna say something along the lines of you've been doing something fun in Obsidian, and then you'll tell me what to click on. Does that sound good?
Sure.
All
Sounds
right.
good.
All right. Whenever you're ready, count it down.
All right. Three, two, one.
Good to go. So, Mike, you've been dabbling in Obsidian as you like to do. Can you tell me some fun things that you've been doing, or maybe show them to me? That would be fun as well.
Sure. So yeah, I've been running some Anne Laure LeCunff inspired tiny experiments in
Oh, very
my
nice.
Obsidian Vault. By the way, the last video that I did was a book review for Tiny Experiments.
Okay.
And I shared when I published it on social media, even though I knew that a lot of the algorithms will downrank your posts because they have a link outside of the platform in
Hmm.
them. And I was like, I don't care. I'm just going to mention Anne in all of the platforms that I can find her and say, I loved Anne Laure's book so much. I made this video about it. And the title, which seems a little bit clickbaity, but I stand behind this. The most important productivity book ever written, question mark. Yeah, because spoiler alert, people who listen to Bookworm kind of already know this.
Yeah.
It's like in between goals and
Yeah.
habits, right?
Yeah.
So I really think that's going to help a lot of people. Anyways, I did the video and she watched it and commented back like this is amazing. So that was really cool.
Nice.
Um, yeah. So tiny experiments in the Obsidian Vault. What have I done? Well, first of all, the projects plugin went away, which powered most of my writing workflows. So that was a major bummer, and I had to figure something else out. I feel like
So
I finally gotten there, and
they they
that's
stopped making it, like they took it away.
well, the projects plugin is actually a community plugin, and the
Okay.
guy who made it no longer uses Obsidian. So he's like, I'm going to archive this because I'm not going to support it. I'll give it to somebody if they want to maintain it. Nobody raised their hand to maintain it, even though it's one of the more popular plugins, and lots of people have created content about how great it is. He's got a list of it all in the GitHub page for the plugin. But yeah, so I had to figure out how to redo my writing workflows, and the basis plugin is not there yet. So I figured that out this last week. But I don't think that's the really nerdy thing that you'll probably want to talk about. I'm happy to talk about that one if you want. But the really nerdy part here is that I came across this guy Benjamin in the Obsidian Discord. I've shared a link to that specific post with you in the chat, so go ahead and open that.
Oh,
This is actually the person behind the Keep the Rhythm plugin, which I am a huge fan of. Keep the Rhythm is the one that does the writing stats on the side of your screen. I
okay.
actually have a YouTube video coming out about that shortly. But the the thing that he posted here was kind of a snippet that he shared in a theme that he created called playground, if I'm remember correctly. And what it does is it styles the tasks from the Obsidian Task plugin so they look way, way better. You can kind of see in that post, there's like the before and after image on the left.
Hold on, it's making me do like amazing like voodoo to log into this for some reason. I don't like actively
Ah,
use Discord, so I may need a
okay.
I may need a
Let me see if
screenshot.
I can grab, let me see if I can grab the screenshot only. I'm not sure that I can. Okay. Well, let's try this. No, that's going to be really tiny. Okay. I think I might be able to do this. All right. So this is the screenshot. All right. And at the top, you see a bunch of text and you see a bunch of emoji, and it all kind of runs together.
Yes, okay, I
And
see
on the
this.
bottom, you see almost like rows or cards
Mm-hmm.
that you would see in a well-designed task manager,
Yeah,
like
yeah.
things are Obsidian or OmniFocus, right? That's all CSS with the standard Obsidian tasks.
Okay.
So I saw that, and then in the Discord link that I shared with you, kind of a bummer you can't get to that because there's a whole thread that spun off of this, and it's got a whole bunch of like hearts, bookmarks, stars. Like people went nuts when they saw this
Okay.
to the point where in the conversation, the thread, the developer of the Obsidian Task plugin says, "This looks amazing. Do you have any sort of usage rights for your theme? Would I be able to include this in the plugin and give you credit for it?" And the guy's like, "Well, yeah, that would be incredible. Like, go ahead and do that." So I think this is going to come to the Obsidian Task plugin pretty soon. But basically, what this does is it gives you three different CSS uh, class styles that you
Okay.
can attach to a note. Okay, so when you attach it to a note, that renders the task these specific ways. There's the normal one, there's the minimal one, and then there's the detailed one. Okay, so the normal one is what you actually see in that screenshot. There's also a video in the uh, Discord thread, which I'm not going to try to describe, but basically it shows what the three different styles look like. The normal one has the icons as like little pills below the task title, and the cards are colored based on the priority. So um, you can set a priority, you can set the metadata, and it just shows everything in that card. The minimal one like folds all that stuff up inside of it, and then when you hover over it, it animates so the stuff just kind of appears below it. And then the detailed one has a more detailed view where the stuff is always present, and there's even a little bit more information than what's on there, but it's a little bit cluttered in my opinion. So this is amazing, right? And I downloaded the theme. He says he's going to make it available as a CSS snippet as well, but it's not available yet. I downloaded the theme, and as is what a lot of themes have like CSS, but sometimes they're not formatted correctly. It's
Mm-hmm.
all like one big line of CSS, right? Instead of thousands of lines all broken down so you can find the piece you want. This one was all one line. So that was a pain. But I found the part that pertains to the tasks. I ripped it out and I've been tweaking it for myself, which is then the screenshot that I shared with you, the first one,
Yeah.
that is my task dashboard. Okay, so that is actually using a CSS snippet, and then you can apply those CSS classes to the canvas cards in Obsidian. So I'm not sure when they added that, probably a while ago, but I just discovered it. And so I'm like, hey, I wonder, oh my gosh, I can totally do this. And so I tweaked a few things to make it look better in my task dashboard. I eliminated a bunch of the borders, and I tweaked the positioning of the check circles, changed a few little minor things, but the bottom line is that my task dashboard got a big visual upgrade with the with help from this Discord thread.
Okay, so this is cool. I have a couple of different questions out of this. I'm looking at the normal one in the first screenshot, the the normal mode. In the detailed mode, like how much um wider, longer, whatever you want to say, like I guess taller, that's the word. How much taller are each of those boxes?
It depends on the metadata that's in there, but I'd say probably 1.5 to 2x as
Okay.
tall.
All right. So you
It's
can.
not a huge deal, but the metadata is a little bit tighter when you are looking at the normal
Yeah.
one.
Okay. All right. Second one is help me remember from your task dashboard now what all has changed on the second screenshot. So like what all is new in that second screenshot?
Okay, so the first screenshot is my task dashboard. The second screenshot is just the one from the Discord thread. Which
Yeah.
one are you referring
So
to?
I'm referring to your task dashboard. Like what are
Okay.
all the differences there? Outline them for me.
Yeah, let me take a look at this and the one that I sent you and just walk through it specifically. Okay. So, with this, the check circles on the left
Mm-hmm.
um, are a little bit cleaner. And then there's the text for the title. If there is a due date, a start date, or a repeating date, those now are emoji that are on the right side of the task, um, the task name.
Mm-hmm.
So what you see on those cards is actually a little bit tighter version of the tasks because a lot of them don't even take up 2 lines anymore. They are short mode, so it's just showing the emoji. It's not showing the actual values associated with those emoji,
Mm-hmm.
but those emoji are right justified basically on the cards. And then if you hover over those, it will give you additional information. It'll let you
Nice.
edit the task. It'll let you postpone the task if you want, and it will provide a link to the original file where that task lives. So it just if there are no emoji that show up there, it's basically indicating that there is no due date for this particular task, or there is no
Mm-hmm.
start date. I think the other types of emojis that would show up here would be probably canceled dates. I don't really use those, but that was part of the CSS that I edited. Um, I forget what the other ones are. Those are the big ones that I
Nice.
use are the start dates and the due dates, and then the repeating tasks. They have the little,
Yeah.
circular arrows going around.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So now here's my third question out of all this. So this would get incorporated into Life HQ, right? For you? Yeah.
Yes,
So
and it will be, but it is not there yet.
yeah. So there's. I'm trying to think about like I know how busy you are, and I know how much you have to do, and you do all the time. And then like you go on this CSS rabbit hole where you're just like tweaking and playing and goofing. So it's like there is a little bit of ROI from a Life HQ standpoint. There's a little bit of ROI from a nerd standpoint, right? Like you're just a nerd, so it's fun to do this stuff. um
Yeah.
then do you plan the video like now and like start recording things, or will you like have a separate vault that you'll then do repeat all this stuff to make like the polished YouTube video if you decide to make a YouTube video about this?
Yeah, well, the CSS stuff, I think I probably will make a YouTube video about that, but it's a little bit technical, and there's definitely going to open up some possibility for tech support that I don't want to do via YouTube. So I will build it into Life HQ once I dial it in. I want to see what the final CSS snippet that Benjamin comes up with, what that actually looks like. And then again, like I said, I've tweaked a few things, but I would basically want to use the solid version that he creates, give him credit for it, and then include it with Life HQ if possible. It may actually just get baked into the Obsidian Task plugin as well. So maybe I don't even need to include the snippet. There's a lot of variables with this piece yet.
Nice.
With the writing projects, I'm absolutely going to build that into Life HQ. And so the process for me is kind of experiment with things, figure out how it works, create a video about it, and then add it to the product.
Okay.
Um, and there are a couple other things, like minor things. When something breaks and I get it fixed, I add those to Life HQ, and then I notify people that there's a new version out and they can download it for free. So
Nice.
I guess that's a plug for Life HQ. You get lifetime updates for this. So um, yeah, I don't know what the CSS task thing is gonna end up as, but the task dashboard is a big part of my Life HQ
Yeah.
workflows. So
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, that's awesome. I just wondered how you like incorporated the play around with stuff into your like creator. You know, you have to do it,
Yeah.
right? Like you have to do it. But
Yeah, it's got to tie to some sort of YouTube video basically,
okay.
or some sort of content that, there are lots of places where writing about this or making a video about this makes sense. Like the writing workflow stuff, I actually first wrote about that for my community, the library. And then once I had that, I realized that actually I should make a video about this and show how to build it. So I'm going to be doing that as well. But then it'll actually be built into Life HQ too. So people don't want to build it from scratch. They can just get it along with all my other workflows. But there is always a little bit of fear going into it. Is like, is this just going to be a colossal waste of time?
Yeah, 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 yeah. Yeah, which I would say like I mean, none of it is a complete waste of time. But then there are things that are more waste of time than they are valuable, and you know what I mean. So you gotta, I'm sure you have to balance that big time.
Well, there are definitely dead ends,
Yeah,
and honestly, like there's so much that I have to do that I can't afford too many dead
yeah,
ends.
yeah,
So that is always the fear going into it, is like, am I actually going to be able to have something tangible and valuable that I can talk about as the result of all this experimentation? But with these experiments, I think I'm 2 for 2 in the last week.
yeah. Because I'm in the same boat with like when it comes to updating classes. It's like you got to dabble, you got to play around, you have to think about what's new. But then if you like burn a ton of hours on that and you realize, man, that's just not a good project, right? Like that just really isn't a good activity. It's really not a good project. Then you're like, I just wasted all that time for something that didn't pan out. So like trying to figure out ahead of time what are the valuable ones and what aren't, and which ones are gonna pan out. Like that's the that's the sweet spot, I guess, if you will.
Yep.
Yeah. All right. Well, that was cool. You want to talk about a book now?
Let's do it.
All righty. All right, Mike, we're back.
We are.
And if
You've got floors, and we're ready to record a
yes,
podcast.
well, I have floors. They're not the best right now, but they're floors. They're working on 'em. Before we started recording, I told Mike we're redoing the floors downstairs, and it's just a lot of work. It's a lot of work. So, which Mike is having a little bit of like, I probably am inducing stress in him, which is a precursor to our book today because, he doesn't want anybody else to take on home renovation projects.
At least not during podcast recording, if you can
Exactly.
help it.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. So today we're going to talk about the 5 resets. It's a book about stress and overcoming that. But before we do that, let's get into follow up. Um, I will start with my action items and see how I did on those. So, Mike, green check mark all around on the first action item. I read the 5 resets, and
Wow.
I'm feeling great about it. So I teed that one up for myself. That way, I could easily hit that one. Um, the other one I had was to identify where I already and need to apply let them. And the crazy thing about this is the number of places this occurs and will occur is just unbelievable, right? Like, I mean, there's been so many situations in the last 2 weeks where I've just gone, you know what? Just let them, and then I will respond in the way, which is the let me side of that. And I'm like, man, it's just so applicable in so many different ways. And like I think the biggest thing I've learned from doing it is like keeping in mind that it's not a stop caring about the world or stop having compassion for others or, like it's not that. It's not like how do I say it? It's not like an I don't care situation. It's a more controlled I can't I can't do this. Like I can't like let your opinion overweigh into this situation. So I just got to let you have that opinion, and I can react to it and respond to it that way. So I'm gonna give a double green check mark, which might be the best I've ever done with action items. The best. I mean, now don't I know one of them was a gimme, but at the same time, I get a double green check mark on this one, so I'm pretty proud of myself. So how about you? What are your action
Nice
items?
job.
Thanks.
My action items, first one, start using the 5-second rule. The idea behind this is from the let them theory, but not really from the let them theory from the introduction, where she talks about her other book, which was you count down and then blast off like 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, then go do the thing as a way of overcoming procrastination. I am annoyed at how effective this is.
Yep.
Yeah, there have been lots of
Yep.
things where I'm just like, I don't want to do this in the last couple of weeks, and this definitely works.
Yeah.
So reluctantly give myself a green check mark for that one.
Good job, Mike. Good job.
The other ones, add let them to the personal core values, question marks. I really just think about this. I don't think I'm going to add this to the core values, although like you, definitely had some success with just keeping that mindset. And then the other one was to be the one to go first. And I don't know that I've had a ton of opportunity to do this, but I think I've had a fair amount of success with that as well. So the add let them to the personal core values, I did actually think about adding that. I have not decided to add that yet. And I kind of think, I've closed the door on that. Like that's not something I want to do. But also, to be honest, I'm not sure that um, I really have reached a firm conclusion about that. So I'm ready to like check that one as done, but sort of I'm worried that it's going to come back again at some point,
Yeah.
if that makes any
It
sense.
does. Yeah.
I don't know. I feel like I did that one, but not great.
Yeah.
And then to be the one to go first, that's sort of like a yellow. You know, I I think I had a couple of occasions where that was top of mind, and I stepped out there, but it really wasn't the application that I had in mind when I listed that action item. So I feel like, I've got more progress to be made there too.
I, I think we did well. I think we did well on our follow-up items, our action
I
items
think
for
we
this
did
week.
well, but I don't think I did well picking good action items,
Okay.
if that makes
That
sense.
does make sense. Yeah, that does make sense. Okay, so I'm gonna give us a pat on the back. Good job, good job. We did great on this.
All right, way to go, us.
Way to go, us. All right, let's move into the actual book. Let's talk about today's book. It's called The Five Resets. And if you're searching for it on Google, it's the number five, although it doesn't matter because you can find it either way. But just so you know, if you're looking for the title, it's the number five. And it's Rewire Your Brain and Body for Less Stress and More Resilience. It's by Aditi Nerurkar. Nah, daggone it. I knew I was going to mess it up.
You said
Nerurkar.
you're gonna figure out how to say this. That was
Nerurkar.
my one
I,
stipulation. If we're gonna cover this book, you gotta know how to say her name.
I practiced it 10 times and then I couldn't do it. Nerurkar.
That's okay. That's
Nerurkar.
okay. So
Nerurkar.
side tangent here just for a second. I had a friend in college. His name was Dustin Katona, and he was a religious studies major, and he knew everybody in the religious studies department very well. And he was adamant, when I graduate, you need to make sure that you pronounce my name correctly, Dustin Katona, right? And so the guy who is his like over his what do you call it? I don't know, like the religious studies
Yeah, the
majors. He's
degree program. Yeah, yeah.
well, the guy is reading all the names, right? And so he knows Dustin really well. He's like, yeah, yeah, I got it. Leading up to it, and then the day of, I don't know, he's number 200 in the list, whatever. My friend's about to step up on the stage, and guy reads his name, Justin Karchuna. My friend like stops with his foot on the stage, just like trying to decide, do I actually walk across the stage and
Yeah.
get my diploma?
Yeah. Yeah. It's horrible. The names are
So
hard.
names are hard. I get it. High pressure situation, how
I
you
know.
can totally mess something up like
I
that.
know, I
But
know, I know. Nerurkar, 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 Nerurkar,
Durarkar. Okay.
Nerurkar, 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 Nerurkar. Okay. So the book is a pretty popular book in terms of, it's been talked about in a bunch of different places. This book came out of the Let Them theory. So Mel Robbins mentioned it, and I immediately thought, like, I want to read this next. And I convinced Mike to let me read it next, or to let us read it next. And basically, there are 5 different resets, as you would imagine. Each chapter is a reset, and then there's some wrapper chapters around them. So there's 8 total chapters in the book. So there's an introduction, and then 8 chapters, and the last chapter being essentially the conclusion, but it's kind of like a push you forward kind of a thing. So Mike and I didn't talk about this before the show, but Mike, I was thinking we would just cover them all since there's only 9 total total items here.
Sounds good.
Alrighty. So if you're good with it, let's go ahead and move into the introduction.
Yep.
All right. So in the introduction, basically, um, we're introduced to like these 5 universal truths of stress. So the entire book is really about stress, resilience, and then kind of how your brain and your body react to that. And then it's going to give these 5 major ways to reset, and then 15 techniques within that. I didn't pay close enough attention to see if they were divided up like 3 per each of those to get the total of 15. I don't think they were. I think they were just 15 scattered throughout, and some of them had 4 and some of them had 2. But the 5 universal truths of stress are feel anxious when faced with uncertainty. I'm gonna shorten these down a little bit. I don't feel rested in mind or body. I have so much stress that I accomplish very little. I have many roles to fill between work, family, and community. I don't find any purpose or meaning to my life. Face many personal and professional struggles. So there are these ideas of these universal truths of stress, and then there are 5 different ways to kind of reset that. Get clear on what matters most. Find quiet in a noisy world. Sync your brain and your body. Come up for air, and then bring your best self forward. So essentially, this first part, and she uses stories of people that really she's had in her practice, right? So she is an MD, and then kind of got into this idea of stress and working with people through kind of mental and physical stress, and it seems like she's just kind of taken off. Her career's taken off, and so much that she wanted to write a book about dealing with this. So that's kind of a high level on the introduction.
Yeah, there wasn't a whole lot that I jotted down from the introduction. The stories that she shares, you're right, they're very effective stories about people that she actually worked with. The stories that she tells are interesting. The way that she does it, I can't quite put my finger on what is different about these stories, but I like them a lot.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if it's like, I'm sure she, with writing these stories about real people, she's only using their first names. And there's probably a little bit of ghost writing that's going on here, cleaning up, how they would actually say things. But I think the best way I can describe it is that with other books that we've read that do that, they tend to be over processed and they end up sounding like the author.
Yep.
These all had very distinct
Yep.
personalities that came through in the stories that she told, and somehow they all fit
Yeah.
with the overall tone of the book.
Yeah.
I got done and I was kind of like, that's sort of amazing what just happened there.
Well, and it's crazy because I think the thing that made them so relatable to me is you could easily put yourself in that position of be like, oh, I could be that person. I could be that person. I could be that person. They were so real. The stories were so real. And to your point, I think the reason why it was so easy to make those stories real, well, I don't know if it's easy for her to do it, but like the reason why it was able to be done is because doesn't she say in there like she's seen like thousands of patients dealing with this stuff? So it's like the number of examples she probably had to go off of, the memory of them is probably the hard part, is like remembering, but I mean, I'm sure she just had those ones that triggered in her brain when she was writing the book. So,
Yeah, and in addition to the stories, the main narrative that she's introducing in the introduction is that stress is a normal part of the human experience. Life without stress is biologically impossible, so we don't want to shoot for something that's completely unattainable. And the big takeaway is to work with your body, not against it.
mm-hmm.
That's where the resets are going to come in. There is also a statistic that she shares at the beginning here, though, which I got to be honest, Cory, I am worried about this. She says that it takes roughly 3 months to overcome stress and burnout. And I feel like I am dangerously close to this.
Okay. We may as well get more personal than we normally get. The reason why I wanted to read this book, Mike, is because I am in the same boat that you're in. Like I'm like teetering on the edge of like, wait a minute. I mean, there's another stat in there, and this is the one I thought you were going to go to, is more than 75% of adults have experienced burnout. Right? Like, I mean,
Yeah.
it's a really
Yeah.
common thing, and then it takes a while for this to be overcome, and that's if you're doing the right strategies. So yeah, Mike, like I'm in the same boat. Like I can tell you right now, I often feel very, very stressed out. And I've had the word burnout come into my brain more in the last 6 months than I think I've ever had in my entire life. Not that anybody's putting it there, but I'm thinking like, am I burnout? Like, I'm feeling really burnt out right now. Am I burnout? Like,
Yeah. And the scary part for me as an independent creator is that if I'm burnt out, nobody does anything
yep,
in the business.
yep, yeah,
I need to continue to show up. In fact, I need to do more than I have been doing. And if I'm not able to do it, that's a scary thought. So the solution is at the beginning here, it takes roughly 3 months to overcome. So sort of the solution in my brain, and this is where the book actually I think has a lot of potential to help me sort through this, is not, well, you just need a 3 month break from work. That's not a possibility.
yeah.
And you probably feel the same way. Like, what am I going to do? I'm not going to just not show up and teach for 3 months. I
Mhm.
guess, maybe you could pull that off in the summer, but
Well, but
you're doing floors. So no, you
but
can't.
it's a whole nother like so I mean it cycles, right? Like a whole bunch of other stuff picks up in the summer. So it's not like I just sit and eat bonbons all day, like, oh, my feet up at the pool. Like a whole bunch of other stuff gets done in the summer, and then like sometimes I feel more tired going into the fall than I do, you know what I mean? Like cuz it's like the summer was just so crazy. So, but you're in a unique situation cuz if you don't show up, nobody does. Now, I can't remember, I'm failing on where exactly she said it, but this myth of resilience, where like
Oh yeah.
most of us are taught to just buckle up, or buckle down and just get to it. And she said, no, 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 that's a bad approach too. So you can't,
Yeah. Toxic resilience is the word that she used. I never heard that before, but it makes total
it
sense.
does. It does. So you can't just stop working for 3 months, but you also just can't keep telling yourself just buckle up, or like why do I keep saying buckle up, buckle down, right? Like just
Hmm.
keep doing the work because it's bad either way. So let's move into chapter 1 if you're good for it.
So hold on, with
Okay.
toxic resilience. I just want to double click on that for a second because I had not heard that term before, but like I said, I think it makes a lot of sense. And then when I was at Craft and Commerce, there was someone who spoke on the stage. Another name that I just made fun of you for mispronouncing names. I'm totally going to do it now. Amanda Goetz, Goetz.
Okay.
She announced at the end of her talk, which was really good, that she is writing this book, which is now available for pre-order. And I instantly pre-bought it because I feel like this is going to be a great bookworm book at some point. It's called Toxic Grit. And I feel like
Mm.
that's the same sort of thing.
Yeah.
I know nothing about the book. She's just announced it, so like she's probably even still writing it. I don't know. I feel like maybe this is going to become a thing. But the flag has been planted in my brain. Dr. Aditi, I'm not going to pronounce the last name. It's where I heard it first.
Nerurkar.
Obviously.
Yeah. Um. Okay. So
Okay, now we can move on.
yeah, let's roll into chapter 1. Chapter 1 is called "What's Your Stress Really Telling You?" In this chapter, so what's interesting about this book is she is a medical professional. So she's very much going to go to the literature in the medical fields to describe and to provide evidence for a lot of this stuff. She actually mentions in the book at one point that's like, well, I'm a doctor. I have access to all this stuff that nobody else has access to. Of course, I'm going to go like research those databases and she uses that in her thing or in her research for the book. The other thing that I really liked about what she did in the book is she immediately like lowers the distance between the reader and the author because she describes a scenario, and I don't remember exactly where she describes it, but she was going through med school and basically like she burns out. Like she's like, I'm toast. I'm getting these what you call them, wild horses, right? She's like these heart palpitations that feel like wild horses when she laid down to go to sleep at night. So like right there, you immediately go like, oh, she's really one of me. Like she's like me. Like,
Yeah.
there is no like I'm the doctor and I'm telling you all the right things. No, she's like I was here. So I had to think about this for me and I wanted to share this with you and all the
Yeah,
other
and
people.
That description, just real quickly, of the wild horses, that's such a great description.
It is.
I don't know if you've experienced the situation that she described there, but I just experienced that.
Really.
And like I had no idea when I read that in the book, I was like, I don't know if that really makes sense. And then I went through it, and I wasn't thinking about it as I was going through it, but after that, the next day, I was thinking about it. Like, I just read about that. Oh, that is actually exactly what it feels
Yeah.
like.
Yep. Okay. So she's talking about, what's your stress telling you. She says stress shows up differently for different people. Some people might get headaches and mood fluctuations. You can't sleep, heart palpitations, stomach issues. Then she makes a statement that I thought was like crazy. Nearly every medical condition, including anxiety, depression, insomnia, chronic pain, gastrointestinal issues, arthritis, migraines, asthma, yada, 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 can be worsened by stress. And I was like, oh, I knew this. Inherently, I knew this. But it's like everything gets worse if your stress level is high. And it's like, man, like what an important issue. Like there is nothing that is helped by stress except if you need to like run away from the wild animal, then like the stress actually helps you out. Now, she's very clear to say like there are ways, there's like healthy stress, right? Like so if I'm going to give a talk in front of 1,000 people, the butterflies in your stomach are a healthy version of stress to help you like focus and do a good job prepping and do a good job for that talk. And that's good. So what she's really addressing is this like chronic level of underlying stress that like never goes away. I like the way she separates those two. And like, she doesn't say all stress, 100% of it's bad. She goes, but most of what we're dealing with right now isn't that underlying helpful stress. It's a more intense one. Um, I don't know. You want to add something there, or should I go to stress score?
Well, uh, there's a couple statistics that she shares
Okay.
here, which I think are really important. So 60 to 80%, she said, of doctors' visits have a stress related component, but only 3% of doctors prescribe stress management.
Mm-hmm.
And there's reasons for that. I think part of it is there's not a direct connection there that can be made easily. But then the other thing is that studies show that for doctors to do their jobs properly, they need to work 27 hours per day.
Yep. Yep. Yep.
So it makes total sense. They're just trying to triage basically. So it makes sense why this would be not talked about so much.
I think too, Mike. Like, so you go in and you're having this issue, and the doctor goes, you know what? I think you're really stressed out. And I think if you could handle your stress level, a lot of this stuff would go away. And for me personally, I'd be like, that is an unsatisfying answer. Like, I want you to
Yeah,
tell me,
why
like,
am I paying you this
yeah,
money? Why am I investing this time, to have you tell me that?
yeah.
Exactly.
Like, I know I'm stressed out. I don't need you to tell me, even though if that's the right answer. So there's got to be a little
Thank you,
bit of that.
Dr. Obvious.
Yeah. There's got to be a little bit of that too. Um, okay, so I'll ask you this. Did you calculate your stress score? I'm not going to ask you what it is. Did you calculate it when there's 5 questions. They're rated on a scale of 0 to 4, and then you just tally up your score at the end. Super easy
Yep.
quiz. Did you do it?
Yep. I did.
I did too. And we can move
I'll,
on.
I'll share the score. That's fine.
I don't even remember my score. It was just high. It was like way high. I was like, oh man, that's a way high score.
Okay. Yeah, mine was 16, I
Okay.
think.
Yeah, I
Out
can't
of
remember.
20.
I can't
Not
remember
great.
mine. Yeah, mine was up there. Like it was up in that too. So, but she gives these 5 questions, and she recommends doing it and then redoing it and then redoing it. That way you get a feel for, like how it's changing over time. Like, and that's her goal. So, she
Yeah, so on that topic real quick, because this is not a formal assessment. This is a self-diagnosis, right?
agreed.
And you can't you don't make important decisions based off of a self-diagnosis like that. But the way she uses it, I think, is pretty brilliant, where this is the baseline. Now implement these tactics, which she explains, and they're all very approachable. They're all very easy, I would say,
Yeah,
to implement, and come back to it in a couple weeks and see if that number has changed. Like that actually is useful.
yeah,
What what you're after with this, and this really applies to any sort of metric tracking, I feel like, is the trends are more important than the numbers.
Yeah. Yeah, like I completely agree with you. And it's funny because I didn't think about this until right now. This is a lot of the way I teach, right? Like
Hmm.
you can come in and I mean, I care about where you are on a base level, like coming into my classroom, but really what I care about is the delta, right? Like, what do you look like when you leave? And if you've grown a lot, like, I mean, I a lot of times don't have a bunch of control over what you look like when you come into my classroom. Well, it's the same situation, right? Whether the score is right or not doesn't matter. It's the score now, and then the score 3 months from now, and then the score 3 months, and are we showing a trend going down? And that's really the goal. So yeah, that's cool.
Yeah, and so it doesn't bother me that this is not a formal assessment. I guess I'm not even sure how you would formally assess for this. There probably is a way to do it, but really the takeaway I think is to have your eyes open to the stuff, to try some things, and to see if it actually improves. When I was at Craft and Commerce, I was talking to Jesse J. Anderson. Do you know who that
I know
is?
of the name. I don't know their work very well though.
He's basically the ADHD guy. So
Okay.
he wrote the book Extra Focus,
Okay.
small little orange book, which is really good. And he basically talks about ADHD in terms of how you should approach productivity different than a neurotypical person. So the thing that got him on my radar was he wrote this essay because he was going through Ship 30 for 30 around the same time I was, slightly before. And there's this advice, eat the frog.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So do the hardest thing at the beginning of the day. And I think that's generally good advice. But his thing was eat the ice cream, not the frog.
Ah.
Which talking about from an ADHD perspective, how you need to make a task appealing, otherwise you'll just continue to procrastinate
Yeah.
on it. It's kind of like the dials are turned up to 11. Long story short, I was having dinner with him at Craft and Commerce, and one of the things that happened in the lab part before Craft and Commerce actually started was that Anne Laura Kumpf was actually a guest in one of the fireside chats,
Okay.
and she was talking about some of the things that she was doing now that the book was done, and she's got this study funded. This is public knowledge. I've seen her mention this before, so this is, I'm not breaking any trade secrets here, but she's actually doing ADHD research. And she was sharing about how, like, when she mentioned that, I was like, what? Like, you have it all together. Like, how do you have ADHD? And it really just opened a big conversation about how a lot of people can be very successful, get into like doctoral level programs, and then find out, actually, I deal with ADHD.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's the spectrum. It's not, binary, you've got it or you don't. So I was asking Jesse about it at dinner and talking about the different, signs of ADHD. And there was a bunch of that I just completely wrote off as like, I don't have trouble focusing. I can zero in on a task, and that's the thing I'm going to do for the next 3 hours. And it just seemed like I had gotten to the point where I could manage things and it wasn't that disruptive. So I just wrote it off. And then he sent me a link to like this self-diagnosis, a self-assessment, basically, kind of like this one, a little bit more formal.
Yeah.
And I went through it, and my results were basically like, you probably have this in a small, like, it's not super
Yeah.
aggressive.
Yeah.
I'm using terrible terms to describe this. People who have ADHD are probably like yelling at their podcast players right now because I'm doing such a terrible job. But again, because like I was like, oh yeah, that's not me,
Yeah.
and then after a while, I was like, actually, that probably is me,
Yeah.
at least to a certain degree. So that's where I feel like this could actually be useful, not just because, I have gone through burnout and I got to the point where prototypical description of burnout, I just can't get up in the morning and I dread going to work. There are probably a lot more, I don't know what the word is, tame versions of that, like mundane versions.
Yep.
We get this picture of burnout as this giant depressive
Yeah.
thing. And I feel like we should probably all be a little bit more realistic about whether we have gone through or are
Mm-hmm.
experiencing, aspects of this. And I feel like that's where the long story to say the self assessment, not assessment, quiz, whatever thing that she gives you, the questionnaire, actually, I think could be pretty helpful.
Yeah. Yeah, I would agree. I would agree. All right, let's roll to chapter 2. What your brain thinks about stress. Now, in this one, she's going to introduce a couple different things. So this idea of your amygdala and how it plays into things. She's going to then talk about your hypothalamus, your pituitary gland, the adrenal gland. So like she gets into the medical side of it. Interestingly, I'm less interested in the medical side of this, right? Like I was much more interested in the practical side of it, but I don't feel like it distracted me from the book. Like I don't feel like she went down well, I mean like I don't feel like she went down this like crazy you got to be an MD student, like or
Yeah.
kind of a thing
Yeah.
in order to grok the stuff. It was much more of like a let me provide the foundation from you from a medical science standpoint. So
Sure.
that was good. The thing that hit me big time here is this delayed stress response. This idea, there's this dam and you hold it back and you hold it back, and then your stress is held inside your entire body. It's a learned response. It can be unlearned, which I thought was a really, really relieving statement that she makes. And then she gets into the resilience rule of 2. And the resilience rule of 2 will exist for the rest of the book, and she will use it with basically everybody she talks about. Every example, she uses the resilience rule of 2. So basically, she says, make slow and gradual change 2 at a time. So pick 2 things, and she's going to help you figure out what to pick in the next chapter. But she says pick 2 things and make slow changes, because the slower you make those, you'll the longer they'll stay or the better they'll stay. And then once you've established those, add another or add 2 more or add 2 more or add 2 more. So this resilience rule of 2 is the way she's going to found all of basically the rest of the book.
Yeah. So I laughed earlier because I love the brain science stuff.
Okay.
And it's a reminder of me, I guess, for me never to pick a neuroscience book that just dives into that specific thing.
No,
um,
I'll read it. I'm just gonna tell you, like,
yeah,
I
yeah,
wasn't looking for it in this one. I was looking for help. Like that's what I was looking for
sure,
here.
sure, that's fair. I feel like this is necessary.
Yeah.
Like you have to understand how the brain works in order to understand why stress is such a problem. I did so all that to say though that there was not a whole lot that was brand new to me with her description of how the brain works. There were a couple of things that I want to call out, but a lot of this I had heard before. Going back to my days working with family business and emotional intelligence, I remember my dad teaching me about this concept of emotional hijacking, which I still think is a better term for this than the standard fight versus flight.
Mm-hmm.
They're
Mm-hmm.
related. They're not exactly the same, but every time I go into something like this, because there've been a couple books that we've read that have sort of talked about this, I feel like okay, I'm going to get a crappy version of what I already know.
Yeah. Yeah.
That wasn't the case with this one, so
Agreed.
that is a good thing.
Yeah. Agreed.
um, the short version, the prefrontal cortex, that's the part that the logical part, the analytical part, so you can respond appropriately. I like the way she described that as the adulting part of the brain.
Yeah.
That's perfect. She talks about the HPA axis, the hypothalamus, the pituitary gland, and then the adrenal gland. Those are the main highways for stress in your body. I had never heard it described that way. I think that's cool too. She talks about neuroplasticity, the ability to rewire your brain. I think that's the thing that fascinates me about this the most. But then she talks about the stress starting in the hippocampus, and I guess just for summary, the way that the brain works, you go through, like, you get this signal, it goes through the prefrontal cortex, it's analyzed for meaning, and then you respond appropriately. But the amygdala is the emotional center. Part of it goes straight there, and then that jumps in basically if it feels like it's a
Mm-hmm.
life-threatening scenario, fight versus flight, emotional hijacking, that gets triggered. So you can have this emotional response that gets released before you really can figure out what's going on, which is why you get upset when someone says something in a meeting. It's the same part of your brain that kept you alive when the saber-tooth tiger was trying to eat
Yeah.
you. even though rationally there are no saber-tooth tigers in this conference room.
Yeah, exactly.
Same response gets fired. It
Yeah.
makes no sense, but it still happens. Right. So the delayed stress response, though, is the thing that is intriguing to me, where your body eventually has like a catch up with this acute stress. And there were lots of stories that she mentioned in here. I didn't actually write down any of the stories because they really aren't relevant to the content in the book. They just support the ideas that she's sharing. But there was a story of somebody, and I don't remember what chapter it was from, where they basically found out they had a cancer diagnosis and they're like, I'm going to beat this thing.
Mm-hmm.
And they head down, like did what they had to do, beat it. And then after they got the, the, um, the all clear, basically, then they broke down
Yeah.
and they're like, what is wrong with me? Why am I doing this now? And you can tough it out for a while, but eventually your body has to have a release for that sort of thing. I've experienced that where it's like, why am I so emotional right
Yeah.
now? It's like, oh well, you just went through something, not just went through, but it could be 3 months ago, it could be 6 months ago, it could be years ago. That stuff has a day of reckoning.
Uh-huh.
You're not going to just escape it. You can't just like push through it and there I got through it. Like, no, you're going to pay the piper at some
Yeah.
point.
Yeah, a lesser version of that, right, is I don't know if you've ever had the super stressful periods of time that would be like a week or two or three or whatever. And then as soon as that's over, you like let down and like you get sick. Right? Like you get the flu or whatever it is. It's like I was holding it together, but I was right on the edge, right on the edge. And then as soon as I let down, it's like, okay, my body was like, okay, now we got to recover, and here comes the sickness, kind of a thing.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay, let's go to chapter 3. We've made it through the introduction. We've made some background on stress, and then your body's reaction to stress or how it like kind of processes stress. Now we actually get into the first reset. So this is get clear on what matters most, and the key word here is most. I'm going to jump to the definition of most, and then we'll work our way back. But basically, she says to think about the end game, and the end game is going to reveal what she's going to call your most goal. Now, most is an acronym. It stands for motivating, objective, small, and timely. So she says in the technique that she describes here, write out your list of goals. Choose one from the list that is both motivating and within reach. Then objective changes can regularly allow you to regularly monitor your progress. So make sure it's objective, make sure it's small enough that you can actually do something about it, and then make sure it's timely. And I would say like she's thinking in the next couple months, right? She actually says 3 months here, but it's in the next couple months where you're going to go. So she tries to help you identify the thing that actually matters, and that would be what she calls your most goal. So, Mike, I'm going to get my first action item here. My first action item is going to come by trying to identify what my most goal is, right? Like, I want to figure out what that is. I know that we've talked about this in like Charlie Munger and Buffett's books and stuff like that, to where you write down the 25 things and then you shrink it down to 5 and then you pick one of the 5, right, or whatever. But I'm going to try to really hone in on this idea of this most goal. So that's my first action item coming out of this, and I'll let you take it where you want to go to with chapter 3.
Nice. I'm curious how many action items you will actually end up with.
Me too.
So there's lots of tactics in this book, and she does like number them in sequential order as she gets to them throughout the book. I don't think I wrote down any of them in that format. I did jot down, the things that stood out to me. And to be honest, a lot of those action items, those tactics, were versions of things that I had heard
Mm-hmm.
other
Yeah.
places and was familiar with for a long time. But the end result is that I don't feel like there was anything in here that was completely groundbreaking, new. I do like the most goal approach. My initial thought of when I heard that was, this is way better than SMART
Yeah, me
goals.
too. I thought the same. I thought the same thing. I think you talk about the fact that nothing was new. I would agree with you. I don't think any of the 15 are new or novel or anything like that. But it was cool to have them applied to stress, like have them
Yes.
directly applied in the context, because I haven't heard that very often, and that was valuable to me.
Yeah, and there are, I think, a couple of places in here where I wish there were visuals. So
Mm-hmm.
she's got on the cover these five resets, these five arrows that are in this circular shape right around the person standing in the center. When she's talking about the comfort zone and then the fear zone, learning zone, and growth zone, I was completely expecting
Yeah.
some sort of circular visual to accompany this, and it wasn't there.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't know why it wasn't there. It's right there. I could draw it for you.
Yep. Yep.
um, maybe she feels it's not necessary, but I feel like missed opportunity for some of these things to really hit these points home where you're never gonna forget this.
Yeah.
So yeah. That being said, the things that stand out to me from this chapter are the the fear zone, learning zone, growth zone. I really like that description. I wish there was a visual go along with that because I feel like that's something that is really impactful, and it's easy to gloss over that when you've got a 240-page book and there's no picture associated with the words.
Mm.
But the other thing there is the two kinds of happiness: the hedonic happiness, which is happiness centered around pleasure and consumption, which is what most people will default to,
Mm-hmm.
and then the eudaimonic happiness, which is happiness centered on meaning and purpose. I I think you probably already can tell based on conversations that we've had that I skew more towards that one,
Mm-hmm.
but I didn't have a term for it. I do the life theme, and the everything that I do gets filtered through that, and I talk about values-based productivity and all this kind of stuff, being intentional, and the eudaimonic happiness, that really is a good term for what I'm really after.
Yeah.
And I think the conversation to be had around this is that hedonic happiness isn't something that you should try to completely eliminate necessarily. I think it's fine to a certain degree. I think where it's dangerous is when you're constantly chasing that and you're buying new stuff because it makes you feel good, and then a couple hours later you are down a couple $100 and you're in the same situation
Yeah.
you were prior. So if you're trying to move the needle, I feel like the eudaimonic happiness is really just something that you have to pay attention to. Not that you have to completely optimize for that. You don't have to go full Mike Schmitz on
Yeah.
this,
Yeah.
but you should at least think about it because your happiness is multifaceted.
Yeah. I mean, she talks about there that you get on that treadmill, right? That hedonic treadmill where, you know, you want more, you want more, you want more, right? Well, okay, I get the little hit, I get the little hit, I get the little hit, but there's no like stable, like there's no stability there. Well, the um, eudaimonic happiness is that stability there. But it's like trying to figure out what is going to drive that, right? Like what will drive that? Well, that's where she takes you back to the end game. That's where she takes you back to that most goal. So it's like I I just think this is laid out in such a clear, logical way that it's like it just resonates. Like it just hits well. It makes total sense. Now, I think actually acting on it and like breaking down, so like you make the assumption that, if you're 30 years old. Well, since you were an adult or whatever time, like you've been only caring about hedonic happiness, or at least let's say 90% caring about hedonic happiness. It's going to take you a little while to break that down, right? To where you stop only thinking about that and you start thinking about the higher purpose. And it's like, I just think it goes really well. Like it just fits really, really well. So let's talk about the other two techniques in this chapter because those are important. So technique 2 is make a backwards plan, right? So backwards plan, she outlines it. I won't go through the steps of it, but basically, you start at the end and then you plan your way back. So again, not brand new, not I guess unique to her, but applied in the stress context. And then technique 3 is she says find your buried treasure, right? Like so basically what you're trying to figure out is these activities from your past childhood or just from your past that really brought you joy, right? Like really brought you this eudaimonic happiness, and then try to live more like those. This is probably the technique that I am the least like confident on. Like if I think about, like what my past like most joyful thing in the world would be, it's like I don't know if that would be the same thing I would say right now. Like there's a lot that's changed in my life from the past until now. So it's like I would really want to think hard about that one. That's the one I'm probably the least confident
Yeah, I think I agree. I mean, that's step one in the life theme process is identify your moments of impact,
on.
but then you got to ask why were they so impactful?
Yeah.
And I think it's very possible that something impacted you previously because you identified a certain way. You had specific outcomes you were trying to achieve. You were optimizing for a specific thing. And then your season of life changed. And that's not the most important thing to you anymore.
Yep. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So are you ready to go to chapter 4?
Yep.
All right, so chapter 4 is the second reset. So you see where we're going to go now. We're going to do the next 5 chapters as the resets. So the second reset, find quiet in a noisy world. And man, I mean, this chapter just hit hard. Basically, it's the anti-smartphone, anti-computer screen, anti-digital thing in front of your face all day long chapter. I mean, and she drives home with all of the evidence that says, hey, it may not be like directly stressing you out, but it's increasing your level of background stress, background noise, it's reducing your mental bandwidth. She gives good examples here. She introduces a concept that I'd never heard of called popcorn brain, but I completely
I
understood it
love that.
when she describes it. It's like you're just kind of popping around, like thinking about different things. The crazy thing with this one is, while I noticed it in me, man, oh man, do I see this in my students. Like, oh my
Mm.
gosh, I see this in my students like so much. If I asked them when they walk into the classroom to put their phone in like a container on the shelf or whatever, there would be, a decent percentage of the students who would look at me like I had 4 heads. And they'd be like, wait, you want me to not have my phone near me for an hour and 15 minutes? And like they would go crazy. And I'm just as bad, right? Like I actually tried to think about like how many times do I pick up my phone with really nothing to do, but it's just kind of like a safety mechanism. It's like, oh, I'm just gonna look at my phone. I'm just gonna look at my phone. So I think I have an action item out of here, but I'm not going to lock it down right now. I want to hear what you have to say about this chapter first.
Well, first of all, with the popcorn brain, I can't remember. Did we read The Anxious Generation or was that just something that I did for focus?
You did it, but we didn't read it for this podcast.
Okay, so The Anxious Generation speaks to this and by Jonathan Haidt and Haidt. And I know that David was a big fan of this book, and he's the one who told me about it. He has a daughter who teaches, I think, high school, and she had the same revelation that this is really a problem. One of the things that they started doing is having these cell phone lockers
Mm-hmm.
at their school that kids would put their phones in. And I don't think that works maybe quite as well in a university
Yeah.
setting. But I think that this is going to gain a lot of steam in high schools, and I think that's a good thing. So, um, I'm encouraged that there's stuff that's being there's momentum around some of this stuff, especially with people who are most susceptible to it. But yeah, it's definitely a thing. Now, what do you actually do to overcome that? I feel like the what's the term, Pandora's box has been opened,
Mm-hmm.
with the
Mm-hmm.
the smartphone. So it is what it is. It's not going to go away. I don't think you have to just completely put on the tinfoil hat, grab your Motorola Razor, and move to the woods. But really figure out, really just be intentional with how you're going to use it. I think it's the unintentional stuff that really adds up. Mentioned that in this book, the statistic, we physically touch our phones about 2,617 times per day. That's not picking it up 2,617 times. That's each time that you scroll or something like that.
Mm.
But that is a lot.
Yes. Yes.
And mentions that where your attention goes, your energy and mental bandwidth follow. Um, yeah, again, like nothing revolutionary or brand new to me from this chapter, other than a couple different descriptions for this phenomenon. But again, that's good enough for me, because I feel like it's a few more puzzle pieces that I can use to create a more complete picture over this kind of thing. I do have an action item from this chapter as well, although I think the argument could be made that I am well aware of these dangers and have taken action in many different ways, both for myself and for our family, with the topics that she's talking about here. But this is a very necessary chapter for people who are like, oh yeah, it's
Mm-hmm.
not that big a deal. She does a great job of explaining why this is such a big deal. So the action item for me from this is to craft a media diet. And really the thing that got me thinking about this as an action item for me was the way that she defined the media diet with a couple different um, criteria, maybe. She talks about time limits, talks about geographical limits, and then logistical limits. And I've done a little bit of this, like the geographical limits, for example, no smartphones in the bedroom. We have a thing where we keep our phones, and everybody charges all their devices there at night. It's a like big 12 port charger or something that we keep things in at night. But other than that, I really haven't done a whole lot in terms of when and where am I going to be when I use my phone.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I feel like I could get away with that. Well, I could benefit from that, I guess.
Yeah.
I work from home, so it would be very easy for me to just say, my phone is not going to come into my office. And if I'm not going to have social media on my computer, it's only going to be on my phone or something. That's a terrible example, because I actually want to flip that. I want social media not to be on the phone. I want it to just be on
Yeah.
the computer. But I want to eliminate basically the mindless scrolling where I just pick up the phone by default. Because even though I've made some progress here, I'm still susceptible to
Oh yeah.
this. And there will be times when it's like, what did I just do for the last hour? I wasn't paying attention and nothing.
Yep. Yeah.
When I've got this project, I've got this script I've got to write, all these different things that I should have been doing, and just putting some more boundaries in place. But there was some crazy statistics and things in here, like sleep deprived people showing a 60% higher reactivity in the amygdala. So essentially, if you don't sleep very well, then you're gonna find yourself in that fight versus flight more often, which is kind of like duh. But then also 50% of people check their phone in the middle of the night.
Mm-hmm.
Well, what are you doing? Like you're setting yourself up to fail if you're doing that sort of stuff. She talks about how we have this primal urge to scroll, and I never really thought about it that way, but she's right. It's not we have a primal urge to rub our finger across a slab of glass that's connected to the internet,
Yeah.
but the people who have developed those apps and those technologies are tapping into
Yeah.
an instinct that is there.
I think it's the primal urge to be entertained, right? Or to be
Mm.
like excited or angered or whatever it might be. Like there's
Dopamine,
yeah,
yeah.
which I think it's crazy. I'm glad you brought it up. I think it's crazy. The word dopamine to my memory was not mentioned in this book at all. Like
Mm.
I could not. I was like, how did we get through this whole book without talking about dopamine? But I get it. It wasn't the point of the book. I think the two statements that come out of this chapter for me was screens are the chief enabler of bedtime procrastination. I was like, yep. Whether it's your phone or watching TV or whatever it might be, I was like, that is 100% true. And then the other one that you triggered when you were talking about it is mine is I use my cell phone for an alarm.
Mm.
So it'll go off in the morning and I will then look at it. And it's like I'm doing nothing. It's like I'm not like productive. I'm not doing anything. I'm just like burr, 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 burr. And it's like, what am I doing? Like that is no way to
Yeah.
start your day. Like you're gonna start your day with a bunch of nonsense. So I'm gonna get an action item out of this chapter, and I figured out what it was. I want to revisit my cell phone use. Like, and the only goal here is can I make it less? So I just spent a week at the beach, and left my phone in the room for like most of the time, right? Nothing broke. Everything was okay. Like there were no fires that, I needed to put out or, like nothing bad happened, Mike. Like everything was okay. And I need to carry that into like normal life. So I'm going to revisit my cell phone use as a way to make progress
Nice.
there. Yeah.
I think that's the big takeaway for everybody is to consider your cell phone use because there's a pairing of things that she said there that hit me at the end of this chapter where using your phone more is correlated to spending more time alone.
Mm-hmm.
But then the quality of your relationships is the single greatest predictor of
Yep.
happiness.
Yep. Yep.
So if you are addicted to your phone, you may not intentionally make the choice, I'm not going to go hang out with my friends, but you won't go hang out with your friends. You'll just continue to scroll or
Yeah.
watch videos or whatever. And then those relationships won't get built. And then in the long run, that's going to have a significant impact on your overall
Yeah.
happiness.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Let's go to chapter 5. Chapter 5 is the third reset. Sync your brain and your body. So this chapter is all about the mind body connection. I like that she calls it out at the very beginning of the chapter. She's like, it's not a woo woo concept. Like, it's okay. Like, this is actually real, and we're getting more and more evidence about it. She refers back to that HPA axis and about how that plays into it. There's a big section of this that's about your gut and how your gut feeling or your gut reaction or whatever, like that actually is probably more accurate than we all realized. Breath was the focus of a lot of the or multiple of the techniques in this chapter. She gave different approaches to breathing. The one side note or tangent I'll take right now, the 4-7-8 breathing, Mike, which is basically you breathe through your nose for a count of 4, hold your breath for a count of 7, and then you exhale slowly for a count of 8. This, Mike, is incredibly effective. Like, I don't know if you've ever done it, but it's like crazy
Yeah.
effective. And the first I had heard about it was, I think it was because it's how they taught like Navy SEALs to go to sleep in like any environment. Is like no matter how stressful it was, if they breathed this way, they were much more likely to go to sleep in chaos. And so I was like, okay, I'll give it a shot. It's incredibly effective. I'll do it like 3 or 4 times, and the next thing I know, like I'm either way more relaxed or asleep. So I thought that was pretty cool. Um, yes.
Yeah. I'm a big fan of that technique. I used it last night.
Yeah. Yeah.
uh, I don't remember where we heard about this first, but it's not the first place that we've come across it.
I agree.
It's bothering me that I can't remember where we first heard about it from.
I don't know if it was Michael Easter's book with the dopamine stuff, but I know we've read it before. I just can't remember. I can't remember where we got it either.
Yeah, the additional detail that she provides that was always a question in the back of my mind was how many times do you do this? Because in my like I don't know about you, but I remember hearing about how to do this and then I started doing it. And then after like one or two times I yawn, I'm getting
Yep.
tired.
Yep.
And then like, should I keep going? Is that good enough? And sort of where I landed on was I'll do it 3 or 4 times and then just don't worry about it. But in the back of my mind, I'm always thinking, am I doing it wrong?
Yeah.
And she says, you do it three times, and then you just don't worry about it anymore.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, oh, okay, thank you for finally giving me the details that I need to not worry about whether I am messing it up.
That's funny because I haven't thought about that once. I just usually do it a couple times and go, okay, I'm good. Like things are better. So yeah.
Yeah.
I also use the stop breathe be. I've used that multiple times since reading this book, where it's like, where in particular my one son is like stressing me out. Like I'll be like, stop, Cory, breathe, just be in this moment. It's gonna be okay. And then it's what we've read it in another book. I can't remember which one it was, but it was basically like just give it 30 seconds. More than
Mm.
likely in 30 seconds it's gonna resolve, and you're gonna be okay. So yeah, a lot of breath stuff in the first part of this chapter. Um, Anything else on the breath before I move to the second part of the chapter?
Um, I don't think so. Yeah,
Okay.
I think I'm good. There is some stuff in the other parts of this chapter that I I liked like the friction having three parts being time, distance, and effort. I like that. I don't have a
Hmm.
specific action item associated with that, but
Yeah, so she's gonna give more takeaways and like more techniques here. So take a 20-minute walk. She's big on like 20-minute walks or like a
mm-hmm.
small amount of time, to debrief with yourself or reflect or whatever it might be. She talks about the three phases to building a habit: the initiation to start, the learning, and then the stability phase. So initiation, learning, and stability. She talks about the fact that we can get into this whole field of nutritional psychiatry, which I had never heard of before in my life. But she says it's a growing field. Big on the Mediterranean diet, gives a lot of evidence about why the Mediterranean diet is, at least she thinks it's the most beneficial way to eat for stress and health. That kind of gives the big high level overview of chapter 5 and how the brain and the body connect.
Yeah, the only other thing I'll add to that is she mentions that stress shrinks the size of your brain, but exercise can actually enlarge it.
Mm-hmm.
So I kind of knew this already and have been taking action on it, but was an additional data point as to why I feel that it's so important for me to exercise every day. It's not because I want to get huge or I
Mm-hmm.
want to get fast.
Yep.
It's because I I need it in order to think straight.
Yeah.
It helps me self-regulate.
I'm in the exact same position, right? It's like if I notice a much higher level of stress if I don't do something. It doesn't have to be crazy, but like I need to do something physical every day. And if I don't do that, and I'll tell you the same thing with the boys, right? Like if I don't get the boys out of the house running around, they're way more crazy than if I do. And it's not just like tiredness. It's not just fatigue. It's like there's a pent up aggression, energy. I don't know what word I want to
Mm,
use to describe it. So yeah, a lot of good stuff in chapter 5 around how those two things connect.
yep.
All right, so let's go to chapter 6. This is the fourth reset. This one is called "Come Up for Air." So basically, you're looking at giving your brain a break without sacrificing productivity. So she starts to touch into the productivity. Mike, I thought you'd get a kick out of this. She mentions hustle culture like quite a few times in the book, and I think it's mentioned here, but it's mentioned elsewhere as well. She talks about the Goldilocks principle. There's a couple different techniques in here. Goldilocks principle for the just right amount of stress. The next technique would be the magic of monotasking, which we've talked about in other places before. We've read about in other places. Then the next technique she would talk about is called fake your commute. So she gets into the fact that there's hybrid work now or remote work, and therefore you actually need that period of time. I can tell you as somebody who drives to work, during the semester every day, I need the 15 or 20 minutes between my office and home or my home and office. The amount of productivity that gets done in that time just from in like a clear in my brain and prepping for the day, it's unbelievable. And I know like you have a similar situation where you go to the co-working space. Yeah, it gets into rituals in this chapter. Overall, like I mean, I know it sounds like a broken record at this point, but there's just a lot of really valuable stuff that you can get out of this chapter. Um, I started, I don't know, it was 2 semesters ago, 3 semesters ago, where instead of like scrolling the news or social media or whatever it might be during my breaks, I'll go out and just walk in the sunshine. And I started doing it actually more for the sunshine than I did for anything. But man, does it like really kind of level you out and establish just like a calming presence in the day. I try to not listen to a podcast, but that's really, really hard because I love to listen to podcasts. So I try to not do anything, but just take in nature. And sometimes I'm better at that than others. So overall, I think it's another really good chapter.
Yeah, the stress bell-shaped curve that she mentioned there, the Goldilocks, like the right amount of stress.
Hmm.
We need stress in order to change and grow, but that bell-shaped curve, I was a business major, so statistics, I'm familiar with that bell-shaped curve.
Yep.
She mentions that you're probably on the right side of that curve and you have too much stress. So that was a really powerful visual for me. The way to find the sweet spot is to slow down and to do less. And that sounds like a gross overgeneralization, but I think it actually is probably true.
Mm-hmm.
I was a little bit surprised by the statistic that 82% of US workers say they multitask every day. I kind of thought we had made more progress than that. It seems like people have been talking about that forever, but it does make sense. I do take issue a little bit with how she defines time blocking because she's really defining the Pomodoro method. They're related, but not
Yeah,
exactly.
yeah. I don't think she's a Cal Newport aficionado.
No, that's okay. I do think that the advice that she gives there is actually really good,
Yeah.
and the description she has of the her own journey, where the Pomodoro method is really the 25 minutes of work and then 5 minute break. How she's adapted that to about 50 minutes, like a double Pomodoro. That seems a lot of people who use the Pomodoro method. That's kind of where they end up. So that makes a lot of sense. The hybrid work thing, that was the part that stood out to me the most. She talks about how hybrid work, and I think remote work kind of fits into this category as well. So this is improving autonomy and productivity. Like just that statement in and of itself, I feel like would have been a little bit controversial even a few years ago.
Mm-hmm.
Like, well, how are people going to be more productive when they're not working every moment of every day and I can't watch them? But the way she says it's like, yeah, we've kind of come to the conclusion that the research shows that if you just leave people alone, they're actually more productive. Like that's encouraging. But then there's a dark side to that too. So hybrid work improves autonomy and productivity, but also stress and burnout. And that, yeah, I got to figure out what I'm going to do with that.
Mm-hmm.
The fake commute thing that you described, that actually is one of my action items. Fake commute question mark. I need to figure out what I'm actually going to do with this. But I like the idea of a fake commute and the descriptions and the examples that she had in the book of somebody like going somewhere to get coffee, come back to their house. Yeah, I'm not going to do that sort of thing, but that did trigger to me what would it actually look like if I, get up in the morning and do my morning routine. I'm going to go now to work and start writing. Don't just plop my butt down in the chair and start banging on the keyboard, but what's the 15-minute commute ritual that I could create that would actually help me to enter into
Mm-hmm.
that mode a little bit easier. I'm sure that there are some things that I could do there, and I have no idea necessarily what they are. Now I have lots of ideas like examples. If I was coaching somebody, I'd say when you went to the office, you got dressed, so maybe you need to put on the button down shirt and slacks because it just tells your brain you're going into professional mode. But that's not exactly true for me with writing. And I don't know what it's going to be.
Mm-hmm.
I got to
Yeah.
figure out some sort of ritual though that and I like the definition she has of rituals, which are really just things that you do repeatedly and in a certain order. What's my commute ritual gonna look like?
Yeah. I think one of the values of this book, or one of the things that I think is most encouraging about this book, is none of the techniques she describes are hard. Like they're all super simple. That like if you think about the resilience rule of two, and you pick some of these techniques, like anybody can do these with just the explanation that she's given. So I think she nails it on those. Like I think she does a really good job. I think there are more complicated ones that you might progress to, but I think everybody can get started on these with relatively little guidance, because I just think they're so simple. Like the Pomodoro technique. I mean, that's been around for I don't even know how long, and it's like it's crazy effective if you implement it and you start doing it, especially if you're like a crazy multitasker, and you just do 25 minutes of a single task and then 5 minute break, and then I just think it's really really valuable. I got another action item, Mike, from this chapter,
Nice.
but it's not probably as straightforward.
Mm,
It comes from the
okay.
time blocking thing. I want to reintroduce planning my week. So I used to plan my week. Like Sundays, I would plan out the week and figure out like what are my most important things I want to get done. But really, what refined in me reading this book and working through this chapter was really I don't want to plan the whole week because that's not
Hmm.
realistic for me right now. In the summer, it's not realistic for me to plan every hour of every day and try to map that out. I just want to plan the evenings. On Monday
Sure.
evening, I'm going to do this thing. On Tuesday evening, I'm going to try to do this thing because like my mornings are set. Like it's basically when I read for Bookworm, right? So I read in the mornings while I'm drinking my coffee and, kind of before the kids wake up. But like my evenings are all over the place. So I want to figure out what do the evenings look like and can I plan those well? Essentially, not really time block, but can I time block the evenings? That's really all I care about right now. So that's my next action item.
Cool. You're getting your money's worth.
I am getting my money's worth out of this book. Okay, so now we're at the fifth reset, so we're doing well. We're rounding the bend towards home. So the fifth reset is bring your best self forward. Okay, so this one hits about your inner critic. She really stresses like kind of being your own critic, that we talk to ourselves in an unkind way, that there's this idea of cognitive reframing, which allows us to focus on growth instead of focusing on the negative thing. We get to technique 14 here, which is basically a gratitude practice. So I figured you would get a kick out of that and you would find that comforting. And then the one that I thought was even more interesting than that would be like this express yourself, this expressive writing. So I'm actually gonna read this one. It's a fairly long quote because I think it's really cool. So this is from Pennebaker's, the individual who developed expressive writing. He said, "I would like you to write about your very deepest thoughts and feelings about an extremely important emotional issue that has affected you in your life. In your writing, I'd like you to really let go and explore your very deepest emotions and thoughts. You might tie your topic to your relationship with others, including parents, lovers, friends, relatives, to your past, your present, or your future, or to who you have been, who you would like to be, and who you are now. You may write about the same general issue or experiences on all days of writing or on different topics each day. All of your writing will be completely confidential. Don't worry about spelling, blah, 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 blah. Right? The only rules to begin is once you begin writing, continue to do so until your time is up." And then she kind of doubles down on this as she's going, and she's basically like, even if you just rip it up, like do the writing and then do whatever you want to do with it. You don't have to keep it anywhere. You can destroy it, you can burn it, you can do whatever you want to do with it. I think this would be incredibly valuable for me to do. Incredibly valuable for me to do. And Mike, I'm not gonna lie to you, I'm a little bit scared to do it. I don't think I want to do that. I'm not gonna make this an action item because I don't wanna put myself, my back to the wall and say I have to do this because this one scares me.
Which means you probably should do
I
it.
know. I know I should do it. I know I should do it.
Yeah. So I like that exercise. I actually don't want to do that, but I did really like the live a lifetime in a day concept.
Mm-hmm.
So I think this is sort of related, but not exactly the same, where essentially each day you're trying to tap into six different modes: childhood, which is where you play; work, self explanatory; vacation, which is where you unplug; community, you're building relationships; solitude, you're getting away from everything; and then retirement, where you're thinking about the things that you have achieved or accomplished. I don't have a formal process for that. I realized that she was describing that how the personal retreat fits into the regular rhythm for me, and with the that retirement aspect. Uh, I, I I don't know that I would actually want to try and check all six of those boxes every day,
Mm-hmm.
but I definitely understand the value of thinking about things in those different ways, because I do tend to just get zeroed in on something
Yeah.
and stay in that single mode, and I lose the ability to think about things from different perspectives and then get frustrated when I don't get the results that I want.
Yeah. I could I'm glad you brought up the personal retreat because I think this would, those six areas would be really cool to do in a personal retreat. And then look at those, how they change over the course of a year's worth of personal retreats or just the different things you've collected over the years of a personal retreats. I think that would be really cool. How often do you do your personal retreats? Every quarter?
Yeah, every
Yeah,
quarter.
that's what I thought. Okay.
See, the thing is, I don't know that these six necessarily are worth thinking about on a personal retreat. Maybe the retirement piece where you're thinking about, like the long-term vision you want to have. I feel like that's the part that lends itself to the personal retreat process. But the other ones, I feel like those could easily be worked into the Wheel of Life exercise.
Yeah. Okay.
So that's how I would do this. And I wouldn't just take those and map those directly, but the whole idea behind the Wheel of Life is essentially what are the important areas of your life you want to keep tabs on, and then you're rating your current happiness in those different areas. If you see one that's super low, you focus on that one and you try to bolster it a little bit. So it's sort of the same, not approach, but like the outcome, you want it to be the same
Yeah.
with the what she's describing here. Because essentially, if you never take time to play or you never have any solitude, you want to recognize that
Yeah.
and try to create more of that. But
Yeah. All right, let's go to the last chapter. This is chapter 8. It's called the Fast Track. Now, one of the things that she's done really, really well, I think, is she's very compassionate, or she's very encouraging. There we go. That's the word. She encourages through compassion. She encourages by basically saying, like, hey, don't worry about where you've been, or like what it's the fact that it's taken you this long. Like, just start making change, right? Like, start using this rule of two and start making change. And she talks in here, she ties into called the stages of change model, or the trans theoretical model of change, where you've got pre-contemplation, then you've got contemplation, and I don't remember the other ones. Action.
I think I've got these.
Okay,
So
what are they?
pre-contemplation, contemplation, preparation, action, and then maintenance.
Yeah, which I thought those were really good. Like, I thought that was a really good way to think about, your model of change, and it came out of smokers in the late 70s. So I thought that was really, really good. She describes it as a messy process. Um, and really, this is the chapter that we've seen in a lot of books, especially the ones we've been reading lately, where it's that, like, go get them. Like, okay, I just gave you these ideas, these principles. Go get them. Like, go use these tools to make your life better, to de-stress. And then she drives home this idea of, like, taking that personalized stress score over and over and over again, and then asking yourself a bunch of questions as you work on this progress journey. So I don't have a ton out of this chapter. No action items are coming out of this one, other than maybe, like, man, I just was reminded that, like, I liked this book and I thought it was good, and I thought the stuff that was in it was really, really valuable.
Yeah, it's a an effective conclusion, essentially. And the things that stand out to me from this are to trust the process. She mentions that some days are going to be easier than others, and that the real thing you're after here is progress, not perfection,
Mm-hmm.
which again, I know, but good reminder,
Yeah.
especially with something like the mindfulness meditation. She didn't really speak directly to that super strongly. I thought she did talk about breathing, and she does mention that she has her own meditation practice, but it didn't read to me, or maybe I just skipped over that part because I've heard it a bunch before. There wasn't a big encouragement that I recall, like, hey, you really need to meditate.
Yeah. 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 All right, Mike. So that wraps it up. Let's talk about your action items. Are you willing to go first, or do you want me to?
Yeah, I can go first.
Okay.
I've got two. So the first one was to craft a media diet. And specifically, I want to think about when I am going to be using my phone and create boundaries in terms of the time that I'm going to be using it, the geographical places I'm going to be using it, and then logistically, like, how am I going to be using it for what purpose? And I feel like just identifying those will probably have a net win for me. And then the other one is the fake commute idea. I love that. And I think she actually talks about the bookends with the fake commute. And I realized that I've been struggling with the shutdown routine for a long time, but viewing it as part of the commute home might actually get it to stick,
Yeah.
especially since I have motivation around creating the commute at the beginning of the day. I feel like there's two aspects to that, um, the morning and then the afternoon, and I want to figure out what those actually look like.
Nice. Very cool. So I had three come into this book. I want to think about my most goal, right? So, and determine what that most goal is right now. I want to revisit my cell phone use and then figure out how I can make it less, right? So always driving towards making that less. And then I want to reintroduce planning my week, but particularly I want to plan the evenings. So really, all I'm worried about is planning the evenings. So those are my three coming out of this. If I like look at my notes again, I would probably get like six more, but I'm trying to be realistic. So
All right.
all right. So let's go style and rating. This is my book. Mike, you will not be surprised at all. This is a 5-star book. Like this book is I am so happy that we pushed it up on the timeline. Um, I like this book. I needed this book. I will need this book for a while, right? Like so in terms of I'm going to revisit a lot of this stuff, in the coming months and thinking about kind of stress and burnout and just kind of, being proactive about not I guess not letting it get any worse and then not reaching a point where, it's becoming too much if that makes sense. So I really, really like this book. I like the structure of this book. I thought it was a clean read. I thought she, did a nice job with the examples and tying in. I didn't think there was a lot of fluff. I didn't think there was, confusing structure. You brought it up in the thing, so I don't want to steal your thunder, but it's a really good point. There were some examples where she could have like made images or figures, but really like that's me nitpicking. I'm not like I was very happy with this book, and I think everybody should pick it up and read it. Whether you're dealing with stress and burnout right now or not, I think this is a must read for everybody.
All right. Well, you're right. I think that there are some missing visuals here. Um, I don't necessarily think that that means it's not a 5-star book, although I'm not going to rate it 5 stars. I'm going to rate it 4 stars.
Okay.
Um, my overall impression of the book, which I enjoyed very much, was well, actually, let me before I say that. Does she have other books that she's written?
I don't know of any. No, so I can look at that real quick though.
Okay. I would be curious because like the lack of the visuals and also the way that she describes a lot of the tactics feels to me like this is a good book that she wrote on her own personal experience, but also not that it was rushed or not complete, but there's a lot of low-hanging fruit for things that would make it more polished and kind of like the signature work if this was
Mm,
going to be the book she was going to write. My guess is that she's a very smart doctor with a lot of experience in these things, and this is one of many books that she either has written or will have written.
nope.
And I didn't look at all.
Only book. This is the only book
Only
she's
book.
written. Yeah.
Okay. I'm kind of confused why not put in a little bit of the extra effort then with that sort of stuff.
Do you
Like
remember?
another thing that could be really easy to do at the end of every chapter. These are the three tactics, right?
Hmm.
There's so many books we've read where they have like the little gray box and key takeaways. It's right there, but it's not in this book, and I kind of can't figure out why.
Yeah. Hold on. I'm looking at who the publisher was. Harper One, which I mean that's a popular, well-known publisher. So
Yeah.
yeah.
It's a good book, and I think the tactics are great. And I think there's a lot of stuff for if you come to this book as I'm feeling burnt out. I haven't read a whole bunch of the books that we talk about on Bookworm. This is like a great first book in this topic. And even if you read a lot of the books and are familiar with a lot of the concepts that she talks about in this book at a more detailed level, like you and I are, I think there's still a lot of value to be had in this. So I think I would recommend this to anybody who's interested in the topic of stress and burnout at all, whether you are dealing with it or whether you just want to know more about it so you can be more prepared if it ever were to show up. You should read this book. I kind of struggle with it. Doesn't feel like a life-changing book to me.
Yeah. Okay.
And I feel like it could have been, like, if she leans into it a little bit harder, then it hits different
Mm.
because she's got the credibility, she's got the great perspective, she's got great stories. I mentioned that at the beginning. These stories with this book in particular, were different than just about every other book that we've read. And as I was thinking through, like, why is that? What do I like best about this? You really found the balance between having personality with the people that she's describing, which I think is important when you are talking about average people, because what she's trying to do is, with this book, she's basing it off of her experience working with patients. And so it's not like you're a patient, but kinda.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
So that's really effective in helping you to put yourself in the shoes of the other people that she's walked through this stuff with. Um, I don't know, maybe it's just me struggling with acceptance of this is something I really need to to figure out. That could very well be the case here. Um, but yeah, I think it's a like I said, I think it's a really good book, and I think I would recommend it to just about anybody. Um, I just think that there's definitely more depth to be had here with some of this stuff.
Okay.
And I don't even know like that I want to go deeper with some of these things necessarily, but like one example is like the brain stuff. I'm sure there are books that have been written
Oh yeah,
on going deeper into how the brain actually works. Um, and I like the packaging of the 5 resets. I feel like that makes it
yeah,
really approachable for people, because I feel like in a lot of ways I'm sort of the ideal customer for this one, where she's got a whole reset about the importance of the mind body connection and breath, but she's not going hard on like you really need to meditate,
yeah, yeah. I agree.
So yeah, it's a really, really good book. If I was giving 0.5s, it would be a 4.5,
Okay.
but I'm not. So
I'm gonna let you keep talking because I think you're gonna get to a 5. So keep going. I think you're gonna get to a
no,
5. It's
no,
okay.
that that's it. I'll continue to keep talking if you want me to, but
Nah,
it's not gonna get to a 5. It's really good. I want to just reiterate that like it is a very, very good book, but I kind of am thinking like who is the person that this is a must read for? You're raising your
yeah,
hand.
I'm raising my
Why
hand. Yeah.
why do you think that is?
I don't
What
know.
what is
Season of life, just like where I'm at. Like I just think this is a like when I read about this book and I read the introduction or like the description of it, I was like, yes, I need to read this right now, right now.
Yeah. So I agree. Like at that point, you've got to maybe you do identify as that person who has to read this. But after you read that, I feel like if you're gonna do something with this, it would maybe it's just my personality. It's like, okay, now I got to dig deeper into something. This is a transitionary book for me. It's not the
Mm.
be all end all book for me.
I,
It's going to open a door to like, okay, this is something that you may want to try. And if you have success with this, here's an additional resource if you really want to go down that
mm.
rabbit hole. But I'm totally that person who would jump down the rabbit hole.
Yeah, see, I'm not compelled by that. Like I'm like I read this and I go, okay, I want to try these things, and then I'll go from there, right? But that's just maybe our differences in personality.
Cool.
Yeah. Alrighty. So we are on to our next book. We're gonna put the 5 resets on the shelf. Mike, you have the next book. What are we reading next?
Next, we are reading Lean Learning by Pat Flynn,
Nice.
which I saw him at Crafts and Commerce. This is his latest book, and I think this is going to be a fun one. I'm interested to hear what you think of this, because the subtitle, I don't have it in front of me, but it's something like learn more, study less, something like that. Like basically it's lean learning, just like lean project management,
Mm-hmm.
doing the right things, not necessarily more things. I think it's going to be a little bit of a different approach than some of the other learning books that we've read.
Nice. Very good. I'm excited for this one. All right.
All right,
So
what's after that?
so after that, I didn't tell Mike this,
You did not.
but he will not be surprised by this. I want to read a listener recommendation, and I want to read AI snake oil because why not, right? Like it'll be fun to read more,
Why not?
fun to me read more about AI. So this is a listener recommendation from Mark. So we're gonna read AI snake oil, and it's by some folks at Princeton who are talking about what artificial intelligence can actually do, what it can't, and those types of things. So I'm excited to read that one and learn more about AI.
All right.
All right.
Sounds good.
Alrighty, Mike. Do you have any gap books between now and our next recording?
Well, I don't have a gap book between now and the next recording necessarily, but I did finish an additional book, and that is Useful Not True by Derek Sivers. So it's a tiny little book, takes like an hour to crank through, and it's a
Okay.
bunch of short essays basically. If you go to Derek Sivers' website, you'll get a feel for what these books sound like because it's just, 30, maybe 40 of these one page essays. There's a bunch in the Useful Not True that are not on the website, but there are quite a few that are on the website that are actually in the book. He's a different guy. We interviewed him for the Focus podcast actually not too long ago, and it was a great conversation. Turns out he's a huge journaling nerd. So
Nice. Yeah.
I'll put a link to that episode in the show notes, as well as the link to buy this book, which is not going to be the standard links that we have in the show notes, which I use Genius Link for most of those, where it gives you a choice whether you want to buy it from Amazon Bookshop.org, which is kind of like Amazon, except all of the sales go to independent bookstores,
Okay.
or Apple Books for the digital version. All of Derek's books are self-published and they are on his website.
Nice. Very cool.
So yeah, a little bit different, but it's a good one.
That's awesome. He also has listed himself as a circus performer. He's a musician, circus performer, entrepreneur, and speaker. So I'm afraid to click on the circus performer link, so we're just going to move right on. I don't have any gap books because we are finishing floors in the house. And between that and normal reading and then some projects I have going on from work, there is no way I'm reading a gap book right now. So I'm not even going to try. I'm not even going to act like I'm reading a gap book right now. So no. The answer is no. All right.
All right.
Well, let's put the 5 resets on the shelf. Let's pick up Lean Learning by Pat Flynn for next time. Folks, if you want to recommend a book, you'll see a link in the show notes that takes you there, and you can recommend a book for us to read. We look through those and figure out how to incorporate those into the regular rotation. If you all are interested in more Bookworm or more of Mike and I talking, there's a pro show. This time we talked about Obsidian, task management, cascading style sheets, and kind of how all that stuff comes together in terms of tiny experiments that Mike's doing with Obsidian. So it was a fun conversation. But in addition to that extra content, you'll get ad-free show for when we sell ads. You get a Bookworm wallpaper. There is access to the live stream that we stream on YouTube. So if you're interested in that, it helps us support the show and helps us kind of pay for the background expenses. So thanks for the patrons who support the show. Sorry, I knew there was one more thing. I was like, there's something else in my brain that I can't remember. It's patreon.com/bookwormfm. So that's where you can go to help support the show. So thanks a lot for listening. Pick up Lean Learning by Pat Flynn, and we'll talk to you next time.
$7 a month.
There you go. $7 a month.
Yeah, actually, if you don't mind, I'm gonna try that again.
You
There were
can-
lots of ums in that outro too.
You can do whatever you want to do, Mike. I won't be offended at all.
All right, cool. So I'm gonna just record this real quick so Toby's got it in line. All right. So if you're reading along with us, pick up Lean Learning by Pat Flynn. If you want to support the show directly, we'd love to have you do that. Go to patreon.com/bookwormfm for $7 a month. You get access to a few perks. You get access to the pro show. So that has an additional segment every single time and no ads when we do have them. So today we talked about my Obsidian experiments, task management, CSS, lots of plugins. So if that sounds interesting to you, then you can get the pro show by signing up to support the Patreon. You also get the bootleg episodes, which get published right after we record, typically about a week to 2 weeks early, and also a Bookworm wallpaper. It's a great way to support the show and help us keep the lights on. You find out when we go live to record, so you can join the live recordings as well. And all those details are at patreon.com/bookwormfm. Okie dokie.
I will stop the stream. If you